Hello! Today I'm going to be answering some of the most frequently asked questions that I get from people who are interested in consulting. Question number 1, what is your background? So I studied mathematics at UC Berkeley, knowing that eventually I wanted to do business. I was involved in a ton of really fun extracurriculars like dancing, a cappella, debate, fashion shows, and stuff like that. But what was really helpful was being a part of our on-campus consulting organization because, well, first of all, I made tons of friends. Second of all, it was just really helpful when it came to understanding and preparing for consulting as a career. We would essentially operate as a small consulting firm and source projects, get paid to sort of give our recommendations, put together documents and deliverables, run analysis. And so was really fortunate to have had that experience. That being said, you definitely don't need to do that to get into consulting. I think the vast majority of people don't really have consulting experience before getting a full-time offer. And I think that's kind of not on purpose, but like consulting firms really value diversity. So like diversity of experiences, diversity of educational backgrounds. I know people who studied and got like a PhD in Italian literature, someone who went to the army, someone else who was pre-med, and that's kind of what they value. So the second question I get is, why consulting? So for me, it really boils down to two things. Number one is I didn't know what I wanted to do. So what that meant was I didn't want to lock myself down into a specific industry or job that I didn't feel particularly passionate about. And what's great about consulting is that you can really run the gamut. So you can help a college figure out how to attract more people by designing new academic programs, to like helping a real estate developer figure out how different disruptions in the future will ultimately impact them. And so as you go through that process, you kind of figure out what excites you, what does not excite you. You're not honed in on a specific function, so you kind of see a more holistic view of what a business is like, which I think has been really helpful for me. Next question, how do you even recruit for consulting? So my kind of like answer here will be very specific to undergrad folks who are looking to get into consulting, because that's kind of what I did. I will say it was kind of stressful because it's very structured. Like all the firms will typically want resumes at a specific time and then run their interviews at like very similar times. And so what happens is if your campus is a target campus, you'll have a ton of info sessions from different firms kind of explaining their value prop, what makes them unique, why you should apply. And in that process, you kind of figure out like, oh, I would vibe with this firm, but not that firm. And you have that piece, and then you have a resume drop where they just let you know like, hey, yes, come for interviews, don't come for interviews. You have a couple set of interviews after that. And as that process is going on, the recruitment pipeline itself, you often have different events like dinners and panels that you go to continue to get to know these firms. Because yes, you're interviewing for them, but you're also kind of interviewing them. Like you don't want to go work for a company where you don't feel like you would get along with the people as well as the company culture. So that's happening. And then another layer is like, once you get to the interview round, you'll typically have more support from the firms. So as an example, you might get an interview buddy, and that person is typically like a analyst or an associate that answers all of your questions, might be very helpful when it comes to casing, give you some tips there. And it's kind of like what it is, an interview buddy. It was very stressful though, because all the firms do this like concurrently, but it is also nice in that it kind of finishes and you're done with the process. And then this process, at least when I was recruiting, and I think it's still relevant, is it's in the fall. And so right as you begin your senior year, that's when you'll begin to recruit for your next year's job. Next question, what do you do day to day? So this is always kind of tricky to answer because it's very different based on the project that you're on. There's no average. It kind of is like very specific to the types of work that you're doing. And so I'll kind of walk you through a day, but know that this is kind of illustrative and not always the case. So you will start your day typically with a check-in. where the working team, which would be a manager and like the analysts and associates, you'll talk through what needs to get done during the day. And then you, at the end of the day, will have a check out, which is what did you accomplish and what do you need to do for the remainder of the day. So those are kind of your two checkpoints. And in the middle, you'll have some mix of, let's say, expert calls. So you'll have access to internal experts, in other words, partners or senior experts who have done a lot of work in the space and have knowledge to provide. And or you have external experts where you work with industry leaders to kind of like pick their brain on trends and insights, etc. You also have working team meetings where you go through documents and analysis to kind of make sure everyone's aligned and ask for guidance if you're feeling like stuck in a certain way. Another type of work that you might be doing is like the work itself. So you're putting together PowerPoint pages, you're putting together models in Excel to answer specific types of questions that require a little bit more analytical answers. So that just like the mix of that depends on the project as well. So you might have projects that don't have a model, that don't have experts, but like for the most part, that's kind of like the mix of the work that you do. So that's kind of your day-to-day. These are all the questions that I had on my list today. If there are other questions that you have that would be helpful to be answered, let me know and I will be happy to make another video to answer all the questions. Bye.